We have heard two very dark and dramatic pieces. Gnome, which offers us unpleasant features of the Russian subconsciousness, Russian dwarfs, and terrifying Russian mythology, and then a very sad, piercing old castle, Vecchio Castello. Now, Mussorgsky superbly changes mood to that of very energetic personal storytelling, in which he appears at once as both a presenter and observer. After offering one version of his idea, if you will, via two dramatic and heavy mood pieces, he now writes us a very cheerful view of his inner self. We know that this idea of self-portrait looms through the pictures, and the composer's own picture becomes gradually revealed in all its variations, and thus becomes all-encompassing in scope. To view the whole portrait of Mussorgsky, we must cut out everything extensive and distracting. Modern technology allows us to do this at home, in order to allow ourselves to listen carefully, appreciating different aspects of Modest Petrovich has to offer of himself, and to hear how it reveals the different aspects of his nature. This will be of interest of anyone who understands our journey into the psyche and who appreciate the musical depths of this wonderful composer. With an interesting simplicity, he reveals to us his inner drive. The motivation part of his character, as strongly as he does its dramatic and its lyrical aspect. Once again, he offers an incredibly instinctual view of his subconscious through a novel, but simply two voices progression. I'm left speechless in trying to describe the amazing foresight of his character. He anticipates elements of the late 20th century music, which we associate with the typical progressive of bass guitars or rock music, in Deep Purple or Led Zeppelin, the great rock bands that fascinate their listeners and continue to be fascinating through their recordings, with their wonderful drive and their power, deeply rooted in the powerful energy of the street life. Here, in the music of the pictures, we find the same thing, rock and roll. Please pay attention to the progression in the basis of the line here, which I'm going to present here.
Своей вот этой вот корневой уличной силой жизни. Здесь мы находим то же самое. Прошу обратить внимание на ход баса.
The progression of this line completely typifies that of bass guitar played of any leading group today. Look how the bass goes. What could be better? That is what characterizes the incredible simplicity of the underpinning root strings, if you will, since another word does not come to mind of what connects us to the soil. And so this illustrates one of the remarkable traits of Modest Petrovich's character. He is able to pick himself up after a dramatic and acutely dramatic beginning. So let's play the whole bridge. That makes obvious the resilient part of the character of the Modest Petrovich, which allows him to endure all the hardships of life, which unfortunately was full of kinds of them.
мы подходим
And now
к замечательной
we come to the wonderful bright piece, Tuileries, where Modest Petrovich shows his amazing ability to draw with music.
где
Besides drawing with music, he creates cinematographic images that he envisioned in his mind. And the images actually go beyond the cinematographer, because cinematographer does not give us a sense of temperature or an actual sense of air. Now we're talking
не дает нам
about very interesting abilities.
ощущения
We are taking the first steps towards realizing 3D cinematography. But in any case, only through great music, such as this music, it is possible to produce the rich association, cinematographic images, and to combine them with those associations that awaken in our psychology purely physiological reflexes,
кинематографические
reactions to the temperature, to some pleasant external stimulus.
теми ассоциациями, которые будут
That's done by music only.
чисто
And here, in absolutely extraordinary, subtle, miniature, where everything is so subtle,
это делает.
how difficult this piece is.
И вот
It is so subtly painted
здесь совершенно
that
необыкновенное,
the slightest change in the sonority and the weight of just one tone
что
can change the whole character and give the wrong portrait.
только
This is an extremely difficult task for interpreters, and I think that past interpreters did not even try to approach it this way. Let's try to look, as we usually do, step by step, measure by measure. Fortunately, there are not many measures in this piece. Let's see what Modest Petrovich is talking about here.
интерпретаторов.
There were simply a lot of children on this picture by Hartmann.
Давайте попробуем посмотреть, как мы обычно делаем.
This picture is not preserved, but according to the memories of the contemporary, there were many running kids in the garden.
Чем
That is all, nothing more.
повествует?
So, to learn about this picture,
На картинке
we have nothing
она здесь
but this music to rely upon,
сохранилась, но
which little information forthcoming from the outside. Then, in principle, of course, the greatest information is provided by truly magnificent musical text.
извлечь из этой музыки. Когда у нас мало
Assuming
информации,
we can correctly read music text, no other information is necessary. Since we know how to read musical text, we may discover information that perhaps the creator of the music himself did not even consider.
текст, мы можем вынуть оттуда ту информацию, о которой даже и не думал.
Because, as Shostakovich wrote, even for him, a refined person and a good writer, it was difficult to describe and understand the roles his conscious versus his subconscious played participants, as participants in his great process.
Сознание, насколько участвует.
Was it a 50-50 balance, or was it a title to favor the direction of one or the other? In many cases, the composer creates a work, lives and passes, not knowing the full influence of his creation.
Жизни и
The full breadth and depth of his conception, his picture content, if you will, because talent of composer is akin to his blood's chemical composition. To my opinion, is much more subconsciously than consciously. Well, and just as blood's analysis uses various sorts of chemical reactions or microscopes to help us see the microcosm, so the macrocosm of rich musical text can help us better understand quite a lot if we dive into the well
мы будем опускаться.
of the creator's psyche. We can even learn amazing knowledge from the text itself.
Создателя мы можем
So let's
почерпнуть
see what's going on here. What's going on here in his cycle. Here we have obvious but slight touch of pain. This is quite obvious. Just obvious.
очевидная краска дотрагивания. Это совершенно очевидно. Первый
The first note is slightly longer, is slurred with the second note, which ends abruptly.
обрывается.
And this is just what appears in the first glance. The fact is that every musical tone, every tone ratio wakes up a huge number of associations. And the music has a very deep context. And in no case does it lack inference, nor does it stand alone. At first glance we wonder about the musical depths of these two very primitive consonants, and what they will reveal when they finally open the eyes of them. There is a full degree to which the well of time has led us the depths of Slavic Russian roots is hard to imagine, and Modest Petrovich hardly thought about it. Apparently, it was just programmed in him. That is, he had an innate connection with absolutely wild Russian pre-Christian roots. Well, let us take a look at it, and a little bit deeper. Hands touching this. It is touching. The next measure, the run, absolutely obvious, and it repeats itself. So what is it? Touching and jogging. In today's language it is Mussorgsky, a game of tongue. And the language of the mid-19th century it is Pyatnashki, it is a tag. A little deeper, and we must remember that Modest Petrovich, after all, is a child of 18th century and not the 19th one. Although the 19th century was his heyday, he was produced by the previous century. That is, although we are now almost in the middle of the 21st century, our generation still makes us children of the 20th century. Similarly, we must look at each creator in art this way. What preceded him? For example, Pushkin is a child of 18th century. He thinks like a man of the 18th century, and his mentality is that of a man of the 18th century, although his whole life fell in the 19th one. But, nevertheless, he was brought up in the 18th century. The same is true here. So we go deeper into history and come to the same old game, of which Modest Petrovich probably thought when he wrote the piece, Gorelki. Gorelki. Now we are closer. We are closer to the roots. That is, he, of course, from his grandmother and nannies he heard, and in his childhood probably participated in this game, consisting of running. Gorelki is a pre-Christian game. There is a pure ritual of the wildest orgiastic celebrations of Kupala Day, hopping over the bonfire. Yeah, it's absolutely clear wild ritual. Hopping over the fire. There is aching to such wild half shaman spells. And just listen to this. This is all goes from the wild roots of the Russian pre-Christian history. It would seem simple and innocent touching, leads to being tagged. And what they saying? You were tagged. They were saying voda. And the first sentence, who leads, is burn. There are still many reasons that could have served as lyrics to the chant, but it seems to me that it is best characterized by the word voda. And the children run. Run, go, be the first to tag someone else. But continuing study to harmonic progression reveals how events develop here. Strangely, these simple harmonies lead us into the harmonies with the widely Slavonic roots. On the one hand, there is some mechanical movement which is typical for small children. They are small and often their movements are mechanical, they're just coping. There is, of course, is also picked up by Mussorgsky. But on the other hand, here's a wild, mechanistic and such savage vocal cooings which comes from the most ancient cult of Slavic rituals.
Голосовое времен самых древних культовых славянских ритуалов.
There are very, very ancient roots here. And I repeat, we will never be able to tell whether Modest Petrovich was consciously thinking about this or whether it was genetically inherited through his blood. Yes, in the end, it does not matter. The most important thing is we, having gone through the well of time into the temporary abyss, through this music, through these simple consonances, have been transported into the cosmos of the pre-Christian Slavs. This is absolutely amazing. And it's amazing and extraordinary. Well, let's go further. All right?
Пойдем дальше.
With our game Горелки Пятнашки. Voices run around, imitating the direction of the running kids. One runs one direction, and another voice shows the run in opposite way. Then coming together, converging again and saying, Vodi, lead us, lead us, lead us. There are awesome sound effect here. The combination of just two bars, just look at it. Kids running out on plane, and in another one. The voice screaming heard from a completely different distant point. That is something escaped. This is shown in music. It is such a simple method, creating an acoustically geographic effect. We see the distance. Look at it. From the distance, the child's voice shouts, "I'm here," and the rest run to him. Incredibly simple and amazingly effective at one time. This is not the first children's musical sketch made by Modest Petrovich. He became famous already when he created a small vocal site called Children's. All was devoted to children. It seems there are 7 songs in there. And if I'm not mistaken, it's just 7 songs. Liszt saw these songs and was completely amazed. After that, he dreamed of meeting Mussorgsky. Unfortunately, Mussorgsky did not come to this meeting, although he was expected to, and Liszt waited for him with no result. But either his work did not allow him to make time for this visit, the rather disgusting and difficult work preventing it. Equally probable was that he deliberately avoided this meeting, since his clearly anti-Western leanings would make it unlikely that he would interrupt his job solely for the purpose of meeting with a popular musician, Mr. Liszt, despite the temptation of doing so. As usual, he went his own way. It is likely that he just did not want to meet with him. So Liszt was awed by the imagery of children, so much that he wished to dedicate a piece to Mussorgsky right away. And when Mussorgsky learned of this reaction to his work, his very childish response to the matter was characteristic of a naive child genius. He said, "I wonder, what useful thing could Liszt find in there for himself? Because in general, children are trivialities, but they are not. They are Russian children. They are Russian trivialities. That is, since it was natural for him to express everything through music, including the fact that although the kids are all the same, he nevertheless still expresses the nationality of the toddlers, even with a colloquially called small children bags." So, as a subtle artist, his outlook was naturally broadened by his inherently deep understanding of things, although to us his remark is absolutely striking. His deep feelings are subtly transmitted all through the music. It's unbelievable. So, we part with the children. When someone runs away after tagging a new person, calling us water or burning, the ground pause, then the middle part begins. The middle part is always a little small intermezzo.
Всегда маленькое интермеццо.
It's just dictated by the form.
Дотрагивание.
Here, the touching or tagging has been made, and the game is put aside. We clearly see small romance. As we know, the game Gorelki is played by pairings, a boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, and thus comes the goal. Because later adults began to play this game too, and thus choose their fiancé, and got acquainted. Well, the kids just took the same way, boys and girls, and it's quite obvious that there is a little romance between the kids. Something magical going on.
Романс между малышами.
I want to tell you how fine is everything here. Here, let's say, there is a 16th note, 6/16. If you were played a bit denser, then it will be a run with our feet. And if you play intimately and lightly, you imbue the music with something of a childlike personality, sounding like transparent silver laughter. This is so. Here is so in the most serious and difficult task for the interpreter, this definition of interpretation. In fact, this is interpretation. It's not just the act of people playing the same material differently. It's educated people playing music guided by their individual intuition, instinctually knowing deep within the broad factor of the musician's mind what is the fact the subject is all about. And you can interpret it just using different colors. That would be the interpretation. Give a little more gold, see where its joke is, where the laughter is, where it's necessary to know. So it is necessary to know what it's all about, what's stake with each tone, what says one to another. Naturally, we are talking about works with rich content. Other works is not so programmatic or defined in such a decorative way. This work already belongs to a completely different sort of music.
Маленькая
A small change of modulation, and we immediately see coquetry.
модуляция. И мы сразу видим кокетство.
Children's coquetry. The adult will not flirt like this. It's mechanistic, it's childish. The amazing look to children is not looking on them as dolls or muppets, as unfortunately many adults do, but instead, this is look at a great artist in the pure great heart. He treats children with understanding, knowing of their inner reach and completely different world. Only very few people, only genuine great philosophers, geniuses, treat and understand children and respect their worth in such a way.
Очень мало людей, только подлинные великие философы так относятся к детям и так понимают детей, и так уважают их мир. И вот
We meet such spirit in the great philosopher, the great humanist Modest Petrovich, in his very music.
великого философа и великого гуманиста.
Two measures pass away, and everything changes.
Трех ноток
In span of 4 notes,
меняется все. Здесь происходит
something very serious is happening here between toddlers.
серьезное между малышами.
A little romance.
На протяжении
Everything changes.
меняется.
The temperature changes. The colors changes. There are more sun.
Меняется
The
характер.
character changes. The situation changes. The narrative changes in a span of 2 bars, in a span of 4 notes, and a change of harmony. We see the golden aura of this musical painting.
Живописи музыкальной.
An incredible tenderness with intimacy. It is amazing that such vivid colors can be achieved by such simple means. It is a mystery for me, although there is nothing to analyze here. There are very simple harmonies, and there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chords in here, and we have the changing on the whole world. The entire space is different, changed in 4 notes. Magic. And when all ends, the return of previous material begins, and as the whole romance lasted 1.5 seconds. And then we're coming back to the tag. And with some tension. Running through, quite obviously. There are two voices, surely of two toddlers holding hands. And the third one runs from below. And then we revisit the first situation. Again, this ancient gathering calls out. And we hear the last echo. Then everything disappears. Vision. Few bars. A little more than a minute of time, and such a masterpiece, which probably is the most difficult piece of all pictures. And try explaining to musicians who, apart from their notes, do not see anything and do not hear that this is the most difficult piece. And therein poses the real difficulties in explaining creativity. It does not consist of the incredible striking tempos or the richness of texture, as musicians say, virtuosity, or just lies in the simple of things. And here, where the character and mood of the narrative can change from one tone to the next, just one tone wrongly played, a more milligram heavier than the previous one, and it can completely destroy the magic of the whole piece. One misinterpreted tone kills the interpretation of the entire piece. That's what one can call difficult. This is the most transcendental, incredibly difficult presented to the interpreter. He must walk as a tightrope walker would when crossing over the abyss. And there is a small number of people who understand how to do that. I'm hopeful after our journey through pictures, both listeners and musicians alike understand the true task of creativity, the true task of the art of making music, and the real task of interpreter. Thank you very much, my dear friends.